Well, it's been a hot minute since I've done an actual greenhouse update. Not too much new has changed, but I've made some observations. I'm a little bit under the weather right now, so to be able to come into a plus 35 Celsius environment when it's minus 33 Celsius outside, hot and humid, feels pretty good for my little bit of a chest cold. So here's an update on the greenhouse and how it's working. So it has been a long cold snap outside. I have been slightly under the weather with a chest cold and a runny nose, so excuse me if I sound a little funny, but it is plus 35 Celsius in the greenhouse today, just from the sun. It is minus 33, feels like minus 40 degrees Celsius outside. So as the sun is shining in the wintertime, it is charging up everything in the greenhouse, all the soil, concrete, water tanks, fish tanks, all the thermal mass that's in here. Very, very nice. And then at nighttime, all that heat gets slowly released when there's no sun charging. And all my heat loss is also where I get all my gain. So I've consulted with a few of these builds, and I'm happy to see a bunch of people are taking some of my ideas and building their own and things. But there's a few minor things I would have changed. Now, this is a prototype and pretty well, like I thought I covered everything, but there's a few minor changes that I would have done. What I have in here, first of all, I guess, is a multi-purpose greenhouse. So I'm standing on concrete. This is where we just did a homeschooling little thing with all the kids right now. My wife's starting a bunch of plants on tables, and we have trays out. At the back is some tray racking with some supplemental light. There's a raised bed on the whole front. And there's just in-ground growing with really good soil. So I have, you could do one of these greenhouses solid concrete. You could do one of these no concrete and just in-ground. You could build this whole thing out of raised beds. You could do a whole racking system and just do a microgreens operation, right? But this is multi-purpose. So we do some microgreens. We start a bunch of plants for our outside stuff on concrete and racks and a little supplemental lighting. We have perennial herb sections. Annual crops in the summertime go in the sunny part of the greenhouse, and then perennial fruit trees, tropical stuff like bananas and guavas and oranges and lemons and limes. Now, when the sun shines, because of the in-ground growing, it's really interesting what I've observed, how it pulls the humidity out of the earth. So the temperature differential is like 70 some degrees Celsius from outside to inside during the day. It gets extremely humid in here. So when the sun shines, it pulls the humidity out of the in-ground portion. A little bit out of the raised beds. Under the concrete's a vapor barrier and kind of locks that moisture from coming up. Now, if you wanted to solve a humidity problem, there's a few things you could do. You could have no in-ground growing. You could vapor barrier the whole thing. So what you'd get is extreme heat and no humidity. So humidity is kind of a pain in the butt. With the greenhouses that we build now, or I consult with, we do in-ground special air exchangers for our extreme cold climates. So a custom-made air exchanging system. There's one dome greenhouse a friend of mine built. It's concrete, the whole thing, and then built raised beds on concrete. So his humidity issue is way less than mine because I'm just soil in the ground. Now, I don't have my heating set up for in-floor heating yet because the greenhouse is just, I've got other priorities still. Just a small 80,000 BTU natural gas furnace set at 10 degrees Celsius for at night. So the greenhouse is about 3,000 square feet, and even with this cold, estimated total annual operating heating bill for that supplemental heat is $600 Canadian a year. The lowest hanging fruit, which I would have done, and I'm actually considering rebuilding my front end up higher so that I have a pocket where I can put an insulated roller blanket from China and time it to come down and prevent the heat loss at night. That would reduce my $600 a year heating bill to nothing or almost nothing. But again, $600 a year for a 3,000 square foot greenhouse, is it worth my time to completely rebuild that? In our new blueprints and stuff, we add this special room and a double frame system. I might just do a temporary thing, or not quite as good as perfect would be. to have some sort of insulating thing. When I do my solar stuff and add a little bit extra heat to my thermal mass, that is another way that I'm going to reduce my very small annual heating cost to nothing. I really do like the in-ground growing aspect of things. In the middle of winter, when it's minus 40 Celsius outside, we can plant a cucumber seed and it comes up in the greenhouse, in the soil with no air tubes and no stuff underneath. That's just because of the design and the super insulation around the perimeter. So, our 60 is up there, our 48 walls, 4-foot insulation around the perimeter and horizontal out to stop any of that cold coming in. And I can germinate seeds in the dead of winter. December, January, February, things kind of slow down. We stopped growing tomatoes and stuff kind of then, and kind of wait till about this time of year. In February, when the days get longer, everything just starts growing much easier because I don't use supplemental light. But the things that we plant, they don't go dormant, but they definitely slow down. For pests, because I'm not planting peppers and stuff in the dead of winter, we haven't had any pests this year, or the traditional pests. So one year we had fruit flies, another year we had white flies. And to mitigate that, we used sticky traps and we used beneficial insects like nematodes, parasitical wasps, and that worked over time. Also a homemade insecticidal soap, which is just canola oil or vegetable oil and dish soap and water, essentially. That seemed to work. But we haven't had any of those issues this year. There's a little tiny bit of mealy bugs that I have to watch on the bananas, and those are a really bad bug. We use an alcohol wipe and spray, and then spray them off to mitigate that. But this year we actually had slugs, because again, super high humidity is one of my issues in here. So slugs came, so I've got 5 ducks in here that have kind of fixed the slug problem. I haven't seen a slug in the few weeks that I've had ducks in here. Unfortunately, the ducks are pooping everywhere on my nice concrete, so that's a bit of a pain in the butt. People see these videos AI generated or something of some like Chinese indoor garden or something with a pond with a swan and a duck and beautiful plants and grass planted. That's a falsehood. It's not reality. If you have little ducks and a little pond for ducks in a greenhouse, they're going to poop everywhere, right? And it starts to not be as fresh in here, smells a little bit like a barn. So every other day I have to like wash off the concrete and scrape off their poop, but the slugs are solved. The new greenhouses that I consult for, we do in-ground air exchangers. One, have no in-ground growing is another way to fix humidity. Put in a big air exchanging system is something that I might do. And I might experiment with a massive dehumidifier and use electricity to dehumidify the air and just send the water to my banana plants or something like that, because super high humidity is our number one issue. Now, this made me think of a few other things. So this, again, is my prototype. Since the 1970s, there's been guys building greenhouses and things, and everybody has their own idea. There's the Chinese style that's double poly glazing all the way from a back wall. We're so far north that I super insulated the roof. Then there's also deep winter greenhouses. Mine would be one of the deepest of the deep winter greenhouses. So I have a lot of space, not necessarily for 100% growing at the back, but it mitigates the temperature and it's a lot more thermal mass. So when I invented this prototype, I thought I had it perfect. There's those few changes like insulated roller blanket and air exchanger in the ground and things. But this really was a nice experiment, because when I build other buildings, I know that the humidity is high unless you have a vapor barrier on the ground. When I built my shop, how it worked is it's a pole shed as well. And I had it all insulated and vapor barriered, but concrete and the floor, it was just earth until I put insulation, vapor barrier, and concrete. Now, it's kind of interesting, is passive geothermal, so the heat from the earth would kind of radiate up before it was heated and things, but it was super humid in the shop because it's pulling up heat from the earth, but also humidity. So after I put a vapor barrier in concrete, you still get some of that passive geothermal, but it stopped the humidity. So now my shop is bone dry. If this was a shop, for instance, if you just concreted the whole thing, and put concrete and vapor barrier, you'd have extreme heat. You wouldn't have to heat buildings in my frigid middle of Canada on the prairies winters that we have, but it would stop the humidity. So when I build other buildings in the future, including my future larger house, it's going to be something like this, almost an earthship style, but I'd sooner call it almost a Greenhousedominium. Barn dominium is this trendy thing that people build. It's essentially a shop with the living quarters. They don't use it as a barn. I haven't seen one person use it as a barn because animals smell. So you call those a shop dominium or something. But a greenhouse dominium, it would be kind of like an earthship style, but higher up, so you could have larger plants in, stop the humidity from coming up, so no in-ground growing, and then an insulated wall somewhere here, and your house and shop and garage on the north side. That still, you calculate the sun, that in the winter it's still going to drive into the house or shop or whatever buildings that you have at the back. A thermal wall, so this insulated wall would be partially thermal mass, like bricks or something, or concrete, and with windows, so you get some of the heat from the sun into the house and stuff. That's not going to overheat. Like, there's a percentage of glazing that you have to figure out with passive solar design. And the greenhouse would be super hot up front, but charging all that thermal mass. And I am confident that in Saskatchewan, Canada, I can build structures that don't require a furnace at all. Very simply, like, this is very, very simple technology. So thanks to the invention of polycarbonate and then a little thought process to the design, and you can build structures that don't freeze. So as a self-reliant person, or somebody that doesn't want big bills, or a preparedness-minded person, I can literally build a structure that doesn't require furnace, and it's actually comfortable temperature even at nighttime. Now, the only thing is those few weeks, like maybe 2 weeks out of the entire winter, where it's blizzard, heavy overcast, and you're not getting very good sunshine, that you're going to have an issue. So you could have a wood backup system. Mine's still going to be solar panels, heating water, extra system to charge everything up. But literally, my entire heating bill in Saskatchewan, Canada, is for the entire farm is like $1,500 a year. We use natural gas for 5 months of the year, and then the rest of the year we don't need any natural gas. I had some emails from people that said, well, I'm on propane in my little house in Saskatchewan, and my propane bill's $1,400 a month. Okay, well, you take that little house and the amount of interior footprints that I have out here between, all my stuff, I'm very, very efficient for all the stuff that I got. So I like building infrastructure high efficiently, spend that money so you don't have ongoing costs. And is it worth me rebuilding that front end? I'm still considering it, but I've got other projects to do. But an insulating blanket was your lowest hanging fruit to fix that issue, even over anything technical like sending heat to my concrete. But on a hot day like today, so it's plus 35 in here, I'm sweating a little bit, feels pretty good. It's too hot, so I open up a door or two, even though it's minus 33, as long as the door is far enough away from plants, it's not going to kill it. And then you get the humidity and heat exchange. So it's like this plume, you're making a cloud almost outside as the cold, dry air comes in to the building and the hot, humid air goes out. You're exchanging that air, and that does help with the humidity problem. We cut back almost non-existent watering in the raised bed. I'll just hand water the odd thing. Like the bananas still need quite a bit of water, but that does keep the humidity down as well. So after a few years of doing this and operating in it, it's working about as good as any prototype could be expected, I guess. Better than a lot of other greenhouses that I've seen. But there is some things that could have made it better, and there always is, right? And I'm just getting started on the homestead, right? So I've got a lot of big, big, big plans. But if I build another building, it's going to be long and narrow, east to west. Any other building, whether it's another barn or another shop or all these other things that I would like to do. It doesn't even have to be a greenhouse, but it's going to have a double layer with an insulated blanket, because those insulated blankets from China are very, very cheap. And literally, I mean, people are freezing outside. Vehicles don't start outside. Everything breaks outside. And yet it's a tropical environment where I'm standing. So I think it works pretty good. Yeah, and everything I got to finish my barn. Still multi-use, so I have like 100 chicks in here. So I hope I have to clean that so it doesn't smell up the whole greenhouse. To integrate a nice greenhouse with livestock of any kind, they smell it up because this is airtight, closed-in environment. You want the smell and humidity of nice tropical fruits and the herbs and things. You don't want to be smelling manure, right? But for this year, chicks are in here. I got 200 ducks. They're going to be in here too. Going to hatch in the next week or something. And plus, it's a pretty nice space to come and teach my boys. Like, we bring our workbooks out here for homeschooling or have friends over. You can sit on the concrete area and kind of do our schoolwork there. Like, that's pretty nice. It takes away some of the depression and things out of the winter. When the sun hits the polycarbonate, I don't think it cuts out a lot of the vitamin D and it diffuses the light. So I don't think, no matter how much time you spent in here, the sun feels nice, but I don't think you'll ever get a sunburn. It's kind of interesting how that works, because it does drop the light transmissibility by like 20%. So 80% of the sun comes through and it kind of disperses, but plants seem to be very happy. Or just move to Costa Rica or something. That's too easy, though. I like doing things the hard way. Okay, bye.